Hello and welcome. Tonight, as part of his final duties, President Muhammadu Buhari confers national honors on President-elect Bola Tinubu and Vice President-elect Kashim Shettima. We are aware of your disruptive plot. Department of State Services, DSS, tells subversive elements, warns unauthorized persons to avoid restricted areas on Presidential Inauguration Day. With days rolling in hours to the exit of the Buhari administration, we examined the president's handling of foreign relations and how much impact it made on Nigeria's image.
On business news tonight, NNPC Limited seals 5 agreements with its partners for renewal of OML 130 production sharing contract and conversion to petroleum mining lease.
On sports news tonight, former Tottenham Hotspur manager Jose Mourinho claims the North London side are his only previous club with whom he doesn't have a connection.
From Abuja, the nation's capital, House of Representatives ad hoc committee engaged the Minister of Justice Abubakar Malami over missing oil revenue. The AGF describes claims as baseless.
And in international news from London, Ron DeSantis' long-awaited entry into the 2024 race for the White House was hit by technical glitches after a Twitter live stream malfunctioned.
A few days to the inauguration of a new administration, President Muhammadu Buhari has conferred the highest honors in the land on the incoming president and his vice. While the president-elect Bola Tinubu bagged the Grand Commander of the Federal Republic, GCFR, the Vice President-elect Kashim Shettima received the Grand Commander of the Order of the Niger, GCON. The president also handed over the transition documents at the ceremony, which was held at the State House, Abuja. Our State House correspondent, Gloria Umezoke, reports.
A fundamental phase of the presidential transition program, the investiture of national honors, begins as President Muhammadu Buhari, flanked by the president-elect and their spouses, join the vice president-elect, state governors, members of cabinet, and the diplomatic corps, among other dignitaries at the State House. Under Nigeria's 7th consecutive democratic transition, this is the first time the process is driven under an executive order. There is elation as the conferment of the national honor of Grand Commander of the Order of the Niger, GCON, is first bestowed on the Vice President-elect, Senator Kashim Shettima.
And government signed secondary school protocol from 1980 to 1983.
And then the award of Grand Commander of the Order of the Federal Republic is conferred on the President-elect, Senator Bola Tinubu. The chairman of the Transition Committee proceeds with the second component of the two-part ceremony, which is the formal handover of the transition documents.
We indicated it and we stated what are the quick wins, what can be deferred for the future. So this is a comprehensive document you are receiving this afternoon. It's a combination of the effort of the President Muhammadu Buhari administration aligned with your vision for Nigeria.
The president-elect, who will become Nigeria's 16th president to be awarded the GCFR, is not oblivious of the task ahead.
Whether you go to the route or Nigeria or anywhere, you expect knocks on your doors. We are determined in all sectors. We must make headway. As you've charted the course, the people deserve no less. You said so. I shall not disappoint you.
President Buhari undoubtedly feels a sense of satisfaction as he underscores expectations.
The challenges facing our nation are significant, and it is the duty of the President and the Vice President to address them with courage, wisdom, and compassion. It has been an honor and a privilege to serve this great nation, and I am confident that Nigeria is in capable hands as we embark on this new chapter. I have run a good race. I have finished my course. It is now time for another to take up the baton.
Now, the president, having handed over the 3 critical documents, have also passed on the information that the ministries, departments, and agencies will also pass theirs on for a smooth takeover. The president is explicit about his conviction that Nigeria will certainly attain new heights under the Tinubu-led administration. From the presidential villa, Gloria Omezoke, Channels Television News.
The Department of State Services, the DSS, says it is aware of plans by those it describes as subversive elements to disrupt the inauguration of the next president and governors on May the 29th across the country. A spokesman of the service, Dr. Peter Afunaya, in a statement today said the aim is to undermine the effort of security agencies. The statement reads in part, quote, "The major highlight of the activities is the swearing in of the president on May 29th, 2023 in Abuja. On the same date, new governors will also be inaugurated in most of the states. The service is, however, aware of plans by subversive elements to disrupt the programs in parts of the country. The aim is to undermine security agencies' efforts at ensuring peaceful ceremonies, as well as creating panic and fear among members of the public. Based on these, citizens, the media, and civil society organizations are advised to adhere strictly to security and civil protocols during the events." The DSS is also urging the public to shun fake news, false alarms, and others capable of inflaming division, tension, and violence prior to and after the exercise. Meanwhile, the Nigeria Police, on its part, says it has deployed personnel to protect the presidential villa, provide security at and around the Eagle Square, venue of the presidential inauguration, and to man all the nation's borders, seaports, and airports. The Force Public Relations Officer, Olumuyiwa Adejobi, in a statement says operatives will equally be deployed to man the entry and exit points of the capital city, Abuja, and other critical government installations. According to him, the personnel are drawn from special forces, namely the police, mobile force, counter-terrorism unit, special protection unit, anti-bomb squad, FIB intelligence response team, and special tactical squad, among others. Also deployed by the police are helicopters and drones for aerial surveillance in Abuja and its environs, as well as water cannons and armored personnel carriers. The statement further reveals that police and other security operatives will be located along routes to and from the inauguration grounds, while vehicular movements will be diverted along some routes in the FCT. The Court of Appeal in Abuja has fined a former presidential candidate, Chief Ambrose Owuru, 40 million naira for filing a frivolous suit seeking to stop the inauguration of the president-elect Bola Tinubu on May the 29th. The court ordered him to pay the sum of 10 million naira each to President Muhammadu Buhari, the Attorney General of the Federation, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, and Senator Bola Tinubu. Justice Jamil Tukur, who read the lead judgment of the 3-man panel of the court, held that Mr. Owuru embarked on a gross abuse of court process by filing a frivolous suit to provoke the respondents. The court held that the grievances of Mr. Owuru against the 2019 presidential election was not only strange but uncalled for, because the grievances had been pursued up to the Supreme Court and dismissed for want of merit. Justice Tukur then said that the action of Mr. Owuru to resuscitate the case was aimed at making the lower courts to go on a collision course with the supremacy of the apex court. Now, in the 8 years of the Muhammadu Buhari administration, Nigeria's relationship with countries around the world has had its highs and lows. In continuation of our assessment of the 8 years of the administration, our correspondent, Kayla Megwa, examines the dynamics in Nigeria's foreign affairs during the 8 years of the Buhari administration.
Protect and defend the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So help me God.
It was apparent from the onset of the Buhari administration that Africa is the centerpiece of Nigeria's foreign policy. As his predecessor, Goodluck Jonathan, said his final goodbyes to foreign leaders at the handover ceremony, President Buhari knew he had his work cut out for him. In these 8 years, the Buhari administration has hosted several world leaders, including the then British Prime Minister Theresa May in 2018, where agreements on defense and security partnership were hammered out and signed. Then German Chancellor Angela Merkel in 2018, where several bilateral agreements were sealed. Head of the United Nations Antonio Guterres was not left out as Buhari's administration grappled with many challenges of governance, including terror attacks. And then there was the visit by then Prince Charles of Edinburgh, now King Charles III of England, making his 4th visit to Nigeria alongside his wife, where discussions at several meetings centered on strengthening British-Nigeria relations in trade, environment, and education. Out on the world stage, President Buhari engaged with several foreign leaders, seeking collaborations in trade and the war against terror.
We recently sold Nigeria 12 U.S. 829 Super Katana aircraft, it's great aircraft, in the first ever sale of American military equipment to Nigeria.
The many trips abroad made impacts on Nigeria and perhaps left some impression, either good or bad.
When you go out to market your country, you must have specific message. You must have specific products, you are selling. So you cannot actually go out and all the time you sell a product that nobody is very keen on.
The African continent saw a rise in successful and attempted military coups during the Buhari administration.
Coups are no longer fashionable and certainly no longer acceptable. The entire ECOWAS, all of the authority of heads of states, the AU, the entire international community rose with one voice against it. And that's what we expect in the coming years.
On the economic front came July of 2019. Nigeria signed the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, a continent-wide pact that seeks to create a single market, with hopes that trade volumes from African countries would reach $30 billion by 2022.
Nigeria, of course, being the largest economy, should have benefited big time from that. But I think the border closures, the capital controls really killed and took up the momentum that we would have gained. We got in late, so Ghana got the headquarters. That was supposed to be a West African thing. So that again also affected us.
Between 2012 and 2019, over 120 Nigerians had been killed in alleged xenophobic attacks in South Africa. These attacks also resulted in reprisals on South African businesses in Nigeria.
There has to be accountability and there has to be responsibility for compensating all those Nigerians that have suffered loss.
Policies by the Buhari administration in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic-induced global lockdown elicited global applause. However, the pandemic did claim over 3,000 lives, with over 250,000 people infected. On an economic scale, the ripple effect of the pandemic is still being felt despite the intervention of the outgoing government.
Nobody saw COVID coming in 2020. COVID added to that, inflation now went double digits, which of course has been double digits, but in the higher level of double digits to about 16, 17, 18%. President Buhari and his team have been trying to curtail inflation, but Nigeria seems to have had a stubborn inflation because of distortion.
The Buhari administration has had to repatriate Nigerians from war-torn countries like Ukraine, Sudan, and even Libya in the past 8 years, while dealing with the impact of these wars on trade and foreign alliances. With the 2023 general elections coming to an end, the United States has recently announced visa restrictions on individuals believed to be undermining the democratic process. A statement by the U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken said, quote, "These individuals will be found ineligible for visas to the United States under a policy to restrict visas of those believed to be responsible for or complicit in undermining democracy in Nigeria. Certain family members of such persons may also be subject to these restrictions," end quote. Visa bans from countries all over the world imposed on Nigerians who tried to truncate the democratic process is welcomed by all Nigerians. In fact, what many Nigerians would want is for these people to be named and shamed. 8 years of foreign affairs under the Buhari administration has had its ups and downs. Billions of dollars in infrastructure from China, a rising debt profile, and having to balance climate change ambitions with energy poverty. These dynamics must be properly understood, cultivated, and developed by the incoming administration. From the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Abuja, Kayla Megwa, Channels Television News.
In part two, after the break, in what can be described as a medical milestone, Reddington Hospital, Lagos celebrates its 50th successful prostatectomy surgery. That's in a moment. Do join us again. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live from Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. As part of his final duties, President Muhammadu Buhari confers national honors on President-elect Bola Tinubu and Vice President-elect Kashim Shettima. We are aware of your disruptive plot. Department of State Services tells subversive elements, warns unauthorized persons to avoid restricted areas on Presidential Inauguration Day. With days rolling into hours to the exit of the Buhari administration, we examine the president's handling of foreign relations and how much impact it made on Nigeria's image. And leader of far-right militia Stuart Rhodes sentenced to 18 years in jail for his role in the U.S. Capitol riot of 2021. Let's now head to the nation's capital, and Victor Mathias is standing by to give us the very latest at our Abuja studios. Great to see you again, Victor.
Absolutely great to see you as well, Ayotunde, and welcome to the nation's capital, Abuja. Now, the Attorney General of the Federation, Mr. Abubakar Malami, says so far his office has successfully recovered over $1 billion for the country. He stated this when he appeared before an audit committee of the House of Representatives, which is investigating the alleged missing $2.4 billion in revenue from 48 million barrels of crude oil in 2015. Both parties have agreed to work together to unravel the mystery behind the missing funds, which the Attorney General describes as baseless. Our correspondent Terry Kumi reports.
For a second time, the Attorney General of the Federation appears before the House Ad Hoc Committee, which is investigating the alleged missing $2.4 billion in revenue from 48 million barrels of crude oil in 2015. He maintains his earlier position that he is unaware of the missing funds and responds to the request of the committee for the account statements of recoveries made since 2015.
Under my watch, the Office of the Attorney General has succeeded in recovering over $1 billion for the Nigerian state over time. So I have no problem with the committee, but I have problem with any insinuation suggesting wrongdoing against my person or against the person of the Attorney General or indeed the Federal Ministry of Justice as far as this issue is concerned. The Accountant General and Ministry of Finance are by tradition the custodian of the federal government accounts, and the Attorney General has no hand in it.
Both parties also disagree on the interpretation of the single account of the Federation as stated in the Constitution.
Dedicated accounts were indeed open on the instruction of the President, which is contained in this bundle of documents, which is Table 2. The Constitution here says, and it does not talk of disbursement, it says the Federation shall maintain a special account to be called the Federation account, into which shall be paid all revenues collected by the government of the Federation. Are you, in essence, by this interpretation, insinuating that nobody can do whatever deduction is made by a hotel, for example, if you are talking of the transport, from the customer, it must go direct into the Federation account? You cannot interpret the law to create impossibility. But the essence is, if the money is lodged into the account of the transport, is it eventually, if it is meant
both the Federation account transmitted into the institution responsible for ensuring at the end of the day that it gets into the into the Federation account? And the answer is yes.
With just days to the end of his time in office and the life of the 9th Assembly, the Attorney General agreed to work with the committee to get to the root of the missing funds. Meanwhile, the Minister of Finance and the CBN Governor are yet to make an appearance before the committee. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
And with just a few days to the end of President Muhammadu Buhari's tenure, the governor of Anambra State, Professor Chukwuma Soludo, is appealing for the release of the detained leader of the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu. Governor Soludo, in a letter to President Buhari, states that Nnamdi Kanu is gravely ill with 3 life-threatening conditions of heart ailment, hypertension, as well as low potassium level, all of which demand specialist medical care and interventions that are not available at the facility where he is being detained. In the words of Governor Soludo, quote, "The continued detention of Mazi Kanu has created a systemic insecurity in the southeast as some of his supporters have imposed the obnoxious and harmful sit-at-home order every Monday in the southeast, while all manner of criminal gangs now masquerade as freedom fighters," end of quote. Consequently, the former central bank governor is asking President Buhari to consider the immediate and unconditional release of Nnamdi Kanu, adding that such move is the right thing to do as a nation that extols the principles of rule of law and compliance with the international law and conventions that Nigeria is signatory to. The Joint Health Workers Union says it will begin an indefinite strike by midnight today. According to the National Vice Chairman, Mr. Ogbonna, who briefed the press, all health workers in federal health institutions will withdraw their services from tonight. He said this is because the federal government has repeatedly failed to meet agreements reached between JOHESU and the federal government. JOHESU is the umbrella body of health workers unions and associations, including the Medical and Health Workers Union of Nigeria, Nigeria Union of Allied Health Professionals, Non-Academic Staff Union of Educational and Associated Institutions, and Senior Staff Association of Universities, Teaching Hospitals, Research Institutes, and Associated Institutions. The Kano State government has cleared Alhassan Ado Doguwa, the House Majority Leader, of charges related to criminal conspiracy, mischief by fire, and culpable homicide. The charges were initially leveled against him during the collation of results for the presidential and national elections in Tudun-Wada, Doguwa Federal Constituency. At a press briefing on Thursday, the Commissioner of Justice and Attorney General, Musa Abdullahi Lawal, announced the decision based on the investigation conducted by the Homicide Section of the Force Criminal Investigation Department, FCID. And that's it from the nation's capital. It's back to Ayotunde in Lagos with the rest of the news at 10.
Many thanks, Victor. Data on prostate cancer is poor in Nigeria, but in Lagos alone, the prevalence is 10 times that in Europe, and prognosis is poor. That's according to consultant urological and robotic surgeon Professor Kingsley Ekweme. That's why it's remarkable that Reddington Hospital is celebrating its 50th successful laparoscopic prostatectomy with a professor here in Lagos. Our correspondent, Mary Alali Yusuf, reports.
Prostate cancer is the second most commonly occurring cancer in men, second only to skin cancer, and the fourth most common cancer overall. There were more than 1.4 million new cases of prostate cancer globally in 2020. Surgeries available, often with poor outcomes, not just because of late health-seeking habits, but also due to the current method of open surgery. Here in Victoria Island, Reddington Hospital employs a little-known procedure in Nigeria called laparoscopic prostatectomy, with impressive results. Today, the hospital celebrates its 50th such minimally invasive operation.
And why is this significant? Because we've had 50 such cases with 100% success rate.
Laparoscopic prostatectomy is just one of the breakthrough procedures Reddington Hospital is renowned for.
At the Reddington, we are pushing the barriers. There are many more of these services that we're looking at, be it in cardiology, urology, neurology, even in oncology.
The man of the moment, Professor Kingsley Ekweme, explains how his surgeries go and the intent of such operations.
The number one goal is to cure cancer, so the man doesn't die. Secondly, you want to do it so he regains his function.
People who have come out of surgery are glad they were introduced to Reddington and Professor Ekweme.
I had the surgery about 10 months ago. The trauma before then, I wish I don't recall it. But today, I'm happy.
Mr. Alozie describes his symptoms before surgery.
The major symptoms are difficulty passing urine. That is, you urinate more times in the course of the night, more than usual. Sometimes 7, sometimes 10, depending on the volume of water you are taking before bedtime, and some funny pains.
For the rate of success, Professor Ekweme is ready with an assessment.
And so with minimally invasive surgery like this, laparoscopic prostatectomy, and the technique that we have perfected over the years and modified to be able to perform this operation and allow men to recover their continence very quickly. In fact, all the men that have operated in this Lagos, of these 50 men, nobody has continence issue. Everybody is dry, and that is because of the technique and the ability to handle the tissues with ×3 magnification of the lens. You can have laparoscopic radical prostatectomy with your nerves spared and your functions recovered.
He stresses that one shouldn't wait for symptoms, at which time it is usually too late, but do the relevant tests to keep tabs on their prostate-specific antigen, or PSA value, which may indicate the presence of cancer. Apart from making this keyhole surgery available to the public, Reddington Hospital plans to train doctors under Professor Ekweme in the procedure, which will bring functional hope to many men. Mary Alale Yusuf, Channels Television News.
Still ahead on the news at 10, Nigeria's NNPC seals 5 agreements with its partners for renewal of OML 130 production sharing contract and conversion to petroleum mining leagues. That's on Business News. Please stay with us. Welcome back. Residents of Ijedodo, a suburban community in Iba Local Council Development Area of Lagos State, will no longer have to travel long distances to access healthcare services. First Bank Nigeria has made that possible with the donation of a primary healthcare center to the community. According to First Bank, the project demonstrates its commitment to the health and welfare of the people in its immediate and distant communities.
Mr. Governor, ably represented by the SSG.
22 months after laying the foundation, First Bank Nigeria hands over a completed primary healthcare center to the Lagos State government for Ijedodo community.
Primary healthcare center in Ijedodo. Thank you.
With this facility, residents of the community who have been in need of essential social amenities now have healthcare services within their reach. The project is the product of the collaboration between First Bank and Lagos State One Community at a Time initiative.
We have seen a beautiful primary healthcare center, a standard, primary healthcare center. Not only have they provided the structure, it's a conducive environment. Almost every room is air conditioned, and we're trying to see how we can put in place the maintenance to make sure that it is sustainable. All the equipment, and all of that they're going to use within the center, they will be made available in a very short time.
For First Bank, it's about touching lives, giving back to the society wherever and whenever the need arises.
To the best of my knowledge, the only medical facility available is Igodo. So there's none here. And if you look at the environment here, a lot of people, 10,000 people, it's a whole lot of people. It goes beyond Ijedodo. every state where we operate, every local government where we operate, we make it a point of responsibility to touch the people in that community. First Bank is a people-oriented organization. We care about the society where we operate, and that's just us.
These donations mean so much to the people.
Maybe our wife, they want to deliver from here, we go carry them, put them for motor from here to Ijegun, from Ijegun to Isolo, General Hospital. So, but now we're happy for the one way governor give us now.
The primary healthcare center is expected to improve the quality of life of over 10,000 residents of Ijeododo and other people from its environs. To Rivers State now, and Governor Nyesom Wike has announced the dissolution of the State Executive Council, directing the commissioners and other council members to hand over to the highest civil servants in their ministries, agencies, and departments. Governor Wike made this announcement at a valedictory Executive Council meeting held at the Government House in Port Harcourt. He thanked the cabinet members for their contribution to the success of his administration.
As an elected public officer, you know you are tenured. Today, you are sworn in as governor, you are sworn in as president, you are sworn in as chairman of council, or as a member of the legislature. You know when the tenure will come to an end, so you must prepare. Yes, it's emotional because of the interactions you have had to sit with colleagues, and that opportunity may no longer be there. The way you joke amongst yourself may not longer be there. But one thing is important in life that everybody must go home with to say. There was a time I was called to support, to work for Rivers State. At that time, what happened? What were our contributions? Everybody is saying today, we have done well, we have done well. No one person did well. Everybody did well. The governor alone cannot, on his own, be in charge of everywhere.
As part of this year's Africa Day celebration, the United Bank for Africa, UBA PLC, has held the 5th edition of the UBA Africa Conversations. This year, an all-female panelists are lined up, allowing young Africans and global audience to connect with these diverse panelists on their journeys and how they have waded through various challenges to attain international successes in their own right.
Held annually to foster conversations on building a united front on the continent, the UBA Africa Conversations is already a tradition. The chairman of the UBA Group, Tony Elumelu, and other top executives of the bank are in the auditorium for the 5th edition of the program.
UBA is more than a bank. We have a mission to change Africa. We have a mission to change the world. And we believe that once we change Africa, we will indeed change the world.
This year's conversation is centered around innovating for growth in Africa, and it's an all-female panel who are certified professionals in their various fields. Trendsetter and foodpreneur Hilda Bassi and other panelists share ingredients of how they've made good success in their chosen fields.
More. I feel like the older generation read more. We're so, and we do this all the time, we say, oh, people are not going to read. You can't put the information in the caption. You need the information in the video, but that's something that needs to change. That's the problem in itself. And we need to read. We need to be ready to look at the letters because there's so much in there that will help us improve our minds. You know, for me, I tell African stories through my prints and my textiles. So, and there's so much importance to that because the whole world is looking at Africa and they love the creative art, they love our culture. So it's so important that we keep telling our own story. What we need is to focus. We need to leverage the benefit of technology, and we need to constantly remember that nobody is going to provide our solutions for us.
For the Chief Executive Officer of UBA Africa, Abiola Bewa, and the President of Transnational Corporation, Transcorp PLC, Owen Omoja, for the reward for hard work is more work.
I want to tell the girl child out there that the ceiling is broken. It's no longer an excuse. Those excuses of my mother's moment, my grandmother's moment, is the boy child who is not allowing me, is my boss, it's no longer tenable.
It's quite an innovative style of thinking to continue to disrupt yourself when you are number one. And that's what guides us in what we do. So first of all, in our existing sector, we continue to expand, deepen, exploit, optimize our existing investment.
The bank says it remains at the forefront of leading conversations that will lead to positive change on the continent, while helping to unlock the vast opportunities waiting to be tapped from Africa.
With the new Infinix Note 30 series, Nigerian phone users can now go all day without the challenge of low battery caused by epileptic power supply. The company's global head gave this assurance during the launch of the product in Lagos. The new product, the company says, is groundbreaking in many regards and product of years of research.
It's been 10 years since Infinix first made its way into the Nigerian market. The company is rolling out the drones to celebrate how well it's been accepted in the country with more than 50 million users. And in addition to its products already in the hands of Nigerians, Infinix is launching the Note 30 series.
With the comment and feedback on the older product, we believe this is the secret that how we can keep ourselves always young. Our users has been changed from Gen X to Gen Z. From Nigeria, we have been spent to over 70 countries, especially the emerging market.
The new charging device comes in 5 variants and with groundbreaking new charging innovations in considerations for the Nigerian market, particularly the reverse charging possibility.
The Note 30 series models are the Note 30, the Note 30 Pro. We're also going to have the 5G version, so that's the Note 30 5G, and the Note 30 VIP will also be launched pretty soon. For us, we're excited about this for the Nigerian market because it solves a lot of our power issues. I mean, we have electricity issues, we have power issues, but with a phone like the Note 30, you know that not only do you get fast charging, you also are able to charge other devices and your battery lasts you a very long time. This is not even talking about the other features like the camera and the chipset, but just the basic need of being able to power your life.
It also supports a 15-watt wireless fast charge, a first in its price segment.
So the price of the Infinix Note 30 ranges from 120,000 to 180,000, and that comes, you can get the 120,000 for the Note 30, there's the Note 30i, the Note 30 Pro, the Note 30 VIP. So the price range from 120 to 180,000. And the reason why people should buy this device is because there's one unique feature about this device, and that is the first in its range in Africa to give you the wireless charging pad in a device that comes in that price range.
This launch means the devices are now available for pickup in all Infinix approved retail outlets nationwide.
It's time now for some business news with Anne Wilder.
Thank you, Ayotunde. Hello and welcome to Business News. The Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPCL, has entered into deals with 5 energy companies for the renewal of agreements for the oil mining lease OML 130, which is a deep water block located offshore Niger Delta. The companies include the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, Total Upstream Nigeria Limited, China National Offshore Oil Corporation, South Atlantic Petroleum, and Prime 130. According to the state oil firm, the deals comprise the production sharing contract, 3 petroleum mining lease and license instruments, as well as other agreements. This accomplishment will enable the NNPCL firm up final investment decision for the pre-oil field amounting to $2.1 billion. Access Holdings PLC has declared a final dividend of 1.3 kobo every year, per every 50 kobo ordinary share for its clients and customers. The company revealed this at the maiden edition of the Access Holdings annual general meeting scheduled here in Lagos. The group chief executive of the company restructured the holdco, Mr. Dr. Herbert Wigwe, says the investment is a capstone initiative following the $500 million additional Tier 1 capital raised by the bank in the year 2021 and advanced its vision to be the world's most respected African bank.
Having transitioned into a non-operating financial holdings, this is the first AGM of Access Holdings PLC. It's bringing together shareholders on-site and online to do an appraisal of the performance for the year ended December 2022.
Will someone please second this motion?
On the lineup is the review of the 2022 annual reports and accounts, resolutions, as well as elections of executives.
Any opposition? Thank you.
And despite the tough macroeconomic conditions, including inflation at over 20%, the company records a profit before tax of 167.7 billion naira for the year. While total assets grew by 28.2%, the company declares a final dividend of 1 naira 30 kobo. But that's not all.
We are at ₦1 trillion in terms of assets which are being managed. You will find significant growth as we move into the year. Because we intend to maximize and leverage off the rest of the bank in terms of getting more and more RSCs to basically sign on with access pensions, and therefore we start to see the benefits of that combination.
Shareholders are also excited with the company's success story in the last financial year. But like Oliver Twist, some stakeholders want more.
See, the small-scale companies in Nigeria, they are working hard. They have the potentials, but the seed funding is difficult for them. And I think if Access Bank can exploit that particular area to give them cheaper funds in order to be able to expand their business and, fund their activities.
And for the future, the group CEO says the company will, among other things, create a globally connected community and ecosystem.
The next 5 years will see us coming out as one of the top 5 banks in the continent, inclusive of the large South African players. But more importantly, people will now start to see an institution that is beginning to have a composite risk rating that may pierce the sovereign ceiling.
Access Holdings PLC says 2022 was a year of unprecedented challenges for the company. But the company insists it will continue to demonstrate commitment and ability to support her customers, clients, and wider stakeholders in the face of the ever-changing economic conditions.
More than 57 billion naira, that's the amount knocked off from the domestic stock market's total value today, as the uptrend recorded in the last 3 sessions came to a halt at the close of trade. Will Ibong has the details.
Welcome to the stock market report, and the NGX records its first negative close this week. The benchmark index went tumbling 0.2% on the back of losses in some of the big names in the market. Corn Oil and Unilever were the biggest losers in today's trading session as their share prices made a dive to the floor of the exchange. The stocks lost 9.92% and 8.28% each to close the trading session. And I guess we can see Unilever's loss reflected in the consumer goods index as that dropped 0.14% today. However, Total Energies saved the day, made a huge save for the oil and gas index. It was able to offset the huge loss recorded in corn oil, turning that counter around. Meanwhile, FTN Cocoa topped the gainers chart today. Not a bad move for that stock. And analysts say equities are reacting to that not so impressive first quarter GDP numbers that came out on Wednesday. And that's the stock market report. I'm Will Ibong. It's back to you, Anne.
And that's business news for tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Anne Nwawadu. Ayotunde will be back with the rest of the news at 10.
Thank you, Anne. Leader of a far-right militia and former U.S. Army paratrooper Stuart Rhodes has been sentenced to 18 years in prison for his role in the Capitol riot. Here's Simon Pusey with Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Ron DeSantis' long-awaited entry into the 2024 race for the White House was hit by technical glitches after a Twitter live stream malfunctioned.
All right, sorry about that. We've got so many people here that I think we are kind of melting the servers.
It meant the Florida governor's bid for the Republican presidential nomination got underway 20 minutes late.
Righting the ship requires restoring sanity to our society.
He went on to use the event to champion his conservative credentials, his anti-lockdown stance, and education reforms. The Florida governor is viewed as former President Donald Trump's chief rival to be the party's candidate in the 2024 general election. The head of Russia's Wagner mercenary group has announced that its forces have started withdrawing from the Ukrainian city of Bakhmut. Yevgeny Prigozhin has vowed to transfer control of the city to the Russian army by the 1st of June, but Kyiv says it still controls pockets of the city. He said his forces were ready to return if the Russian regular army proved unable to manage the situation. The battle for the city has been the longest and bloodiest of the war. Wagner mercenaries have led the fighting there for the Russian side, and Mr. Prigozhin this week said that 20,000 of its fighters had died in Bakhmut. UN prosecutors say one of 4 remaining fugitives from the 1994 Rwandan genocide has been captured. Fulgens Kayishima was arrested in Paarl in South Africa on Wednesday. That's according to the UN court, which has been trying the genocide suspects. Mr. Kayishima was charged in 2001 over an incident during which more than 2,000 Tutsi men, women and children were burned inside a Catholic church. Some 800,000 Tutsis and moderate Hutus were killed in the genocide. A towering cotton tree, which has stood for several hundred years in Sierra Leone's capital Freetown, has been brought down by a heavy storm. President Julius Maada Bio said the tree fell after a downpour on Wednesday night and described it as a great loss to the nation. He said the tree was a symbol of liberty for early settlers. It also appears on Sierra Leone's banknotes. Villages in Spain's northeast region of Catalonia have been swept away by a hailstorm, leaving streets covered in ice. Eyewitness footage showed a vehicle trapped in a street by chunks of ice and cars driving along a road partially covered in ice caused by the hailstorm in Sant Hilari Sacalm in the Catalonia region. The hailstorm generated flooding in some homes, causing problems for local residents. Recent storms come as Spain has registered the driest start to a year since records began, with less than half the average rainfall during the first 4 months of 2023. Climate campaigners protesting against British fossil fuel and gas projects have disrupted the Chelsea Flower Show in London, throwing paint powder over plants and gardens. Video from Just Stop Oil shows 3 protesters stepping over the rope around a flower garden and throwing the paint powder over the plants while telling visitors that they want the government to stop issuing licenses for oil, gas and coal exploration and extraction.
Oh, for God's sake! No! You morons! Stop it! You bloody morons! No!
Visitors called for security and shouted no at the protesters.
We are here as part of Just Stop Oil! We are asking our government to stop licensing new fossil fuels!
Security officials later escorted the protesters away. And firefighters have contained a massive blaze that gutted a large 7-story building in Sydney after its huge collapse was caught on camera. Footage filmed by Fire and Rescue New South Wales showed a section of a building collapsing as flames soared into the sky above it. A burning vehicle was also seen in the vicinity as firefighters worked to contain the blaze. Over 30 fire trucks and 120 firefighters fought the huge fire in the abandoned former hat factory close to Sydney's Central Railway. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel's studios in Lagos.
Thanks, Simon. It's now time for sports. Securing the Champions League sports for the next season is off the bucket list of Manchester United after they beat Chelsea 4-1 at Old Trafford. Casemiro, Michel, Fernandes and Rashford were all on the score sheet for the Reds, and Felix's late consolation for the Blues could not stop the roar at Old Trafford. Now, after leaving the North London club, former Tottenham manager Jose Mourinho claims they are the only previous club with whom he doesn't have a connection. Mourinho took over Spurs bus in November 2019 after Pochettino left, but was sacked before the end of the 2020-2021 season. And Spanish La Liga President Javier Tebas has admitted that the organization could reduce the amount of racist incidents in the top flight in 6 months if it had the necessary powers. The Spanish League had requested more powers to punish incidents of racism after Real Madrid forward Vinicius Jr. was targeted by racists at Valencia on Sunday. And that's sports news. I'm Jeffrey Uzong. Is back to Ayatunde for the rest of the news at 10.
Many thanks, Jeffrey. And the main news again. President Muhammadu Buhari today conferred the honors of Grand Commander of the Order of the Federal Republic on President-elect Bola Tinubu and Grand Commander of the Order of the Niger on Vice President-elect Kashim Shettima. The Department of State Services today raised an alarm that subversive elements are plotting to disrupt the presidential inauguration and warns unauthorized persons to steer clear of restricted areas come May the 29th. And leader of far-right militia Stewart Rhodes has been sentenced to 18 years in jail for his role in the U.S. Capitol riot of 2021. That's the news at 10 tonight. Many thanks for watching. I'm Ayotunde Balogun. Have a good night.